This is Curvy Widow.
May I speak to it as the only curvy widow in the room? Although I'm not a widow, but I am the only female in the room. Right. Bobby Goldman, who was married to James Goldman, whose name is going to come up a little bit later. Bobby Goldman is now 68 years old. There was an article on her in the Times 2 weeks ago. This is based on her book, and she was a widow. She was married to James Goldman, who was the brother of William Goldman, who wrote Lion in Winter. James Goldman wrote Lion in Winter. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that she was married to somebody famous, you see. And that was her claim to fame, is that she was married to somebody famous. And as a result, at her dinner table every night were the names that of the period that you drop, the way people drop names. And then suddenly she was a widow. And she was not a traditional widow. She's a tiny little woman. She comes and does a talk back after the show. And this is her life as a widow and as a sexual being. And because she's 68 now, the play probably is
about 20 years ago.
20 years ago. So there was just the tip of the online dating scene, and there were ads that you could answer, kind of thing. And she had to write about herself and put herself out there, and that's where Curvy Widow came from. Somebody said, "Well, call yourself a Curvy Widow," but she's
she comes up with it.
She comes up with it, but she's a tiny little thing, and she's a delight in person. The show is not. The show is so belabored. It stars Nancy Opel, whom I adore, and a couple of really nice-looking guys who play all the men in her life, and somebody who plays her friend. You can help me out if you want to on that. And it tells the story of how, and she's a contractor, and this is true. She's a contractor. Now that's a fascinating piece. And the only thing is that she takes down the
contractor as in construction.
In construction.
In fact, I think she helped build the set in real life.
Not only did she help build the set, it's based on her downtown loft.
I think she took a lot of stuff out of the loft. Apparently,
she put stuff.
But the night I was there, we had to talk back.
Well, I think she does that all the time, and I think it's wonderful because if you don't stay for the talk back, you miss all the really good stuff. And she's a charmer. I can see why men liked her, and she was not particularly attractive.
Apparently they still do, because on what night she had two boyfriends in the audience at the same time, and neither of them knew that the other was there.
Oh, yeah, but see, here's the thing that the Times said. She didn't say the night we were there. She only goes with married men, which I know is not and she's now dating 6 different men.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the appropriate way to describe this is to basically get out all of Joan Rivers' Heidi Abramowitz jokes. The woman is a slut. I mean, the Curvy Widow went to England. Oh, was she disappointed when she found out that Big Ben was a clock? I mean, this is sex and sex and sex in the city.
But the show
and who's she going to bang next? And it does, but that's what it ultimately becomes.
Yes, I know.
Originally, she's a widow. She's having trouble getting back into the dating scene. Apparently, she never cheated on her husband. No. For all we know, she doesn't say this one way or the other. She may have been a virgin when she married him. Yeah, all right.
I don't know where that comes in. She was not young when she married him.
I don't know when. I don't know.
She was 23 or something.
Well,
24.
Again, and she gets back into it, and boy, does she get it back. And they do deal with, shall we say, feminine issues
of all kinds.
Yes.
But here's the
thing.
Here's the thing. As a woman of a certain age, myself,
yes.
knowing the dating game as an older gal. Oh God, yes. Gal! I actually said that.
How many married men have you been out with?
I'm not saying, because their wives might find out. Anyway, actually, the married men are nicer than the men who are on the prowl, and that's what she said, and I found that out myself. I didn't always know they were married, but it turned out that way. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's a little hello. Anyway.
I think when Nancy, when you leave the show, we have your replacement.
No. Well, here's the thing. I could sing those songs.
Mm-hmm.
They're not great songs. Forgive me the music starts, and also the scenes end abruptly. I mean, this is not well directed as far as I'm concerned. There's a lot of movement, a lot of things happen, but I didn't get the sense of it being a really top-notch level
But you
show.
do have a tour de force performance from Nancy Opel,
absolutely.
Who is, she's on stage,
90%
of the
show, absolutely.
of the show.
And she dresses on stage. That's how they figured out. And it's all clothes from Mrs. Goldman.
Yes.
It's all her wardrobe.
Right.
So she wears a black pantsuit and puts
she doesn't find romance, but she lives hornily ever after.
Oh, that's very nice. I like that. That's where we should end on that, I think.
Oh, really?
What would you give it?
Well, Do we also mention Drew Brody, who did the music and lyrics?
I already did. I said I didn't think they were very good.
Okay. You didn't mention him by name.
I thought better. Well, see, when you say something negative, then you don't mention the name. That's how I go. I think that's the way to do it.
Well, no such thing as bad people, as long as they spell the name right.
Well, okay.
Fortunately, we don't have to spell on the air.
But what would you give it?
I enjoyed it. I think Nancy Opel had a lot to do with it.
Did.
Certainly not what I didn't know what to expect, and it's again, you don't want to bring the younger children, and you don't want to bring Uncle Reuben, but.
I doubt that they would go to a show called Curvy Widow.
I would give it. I'd say 3.5 Play-Dohs.
I would give her 5.
Okay.
For coming out and doing the tour de force, talking and whatnot, and perhaps for having lived the life. I wish she'd talk more about him. I wish I knew more about their relationship because they didn't look right together.
Well, apparently she did manage his affairs a lot. Just in addition to running her construction business,
years. I mean,
she helped him quite a bit with his.
I know, but it was a marriage, and they seemed to be in love.
It's kind of how she managed to get the book. It opened doors for her.
My number is I would give her. What did I say?
5.
4?
You said 5.
I said 5 for. Okay, she's 5. Really good. And I would give Nancy
1
4.
for each curve.
Yes. And I don't know where the 5th one is, but I'm not even. Oh, I guess. All right, never mind. And I would give Nancy 4, but I would give the show 2.
When you go to the theater, look for Leslie and me, us too.
On the aisle.
Curvy Widow's licking her lips. She's shaking her hips. Look out, all you men across the World Wide Web. Curvy Widow's got you in her sights. I've got to whittle it down, whittle it down, whittle it down. There's got to be a systematic way in which to narrow down the queue of men. I've got to whittle it down, whittle it down, whittle it down. Just a little task to project manage, organize and sort and cull the steady stream of horny men. Curvy Widows,